Welcome to Creative Conversations, where I ask my guests, what does the word creativity mean to you? I'm Nina Lenton, and I am here with Sarah Browning, who is a kindness cheerleader and communicator. So over to you, Sarah, for a quick introduction.
Thanks, Nina. And it's lovely to be here with you today and to have this conversation. So I guess kindness cheerleader is in itself a creative job title. And that comes from, so my work is all about connecting people, connecting human beings. And the kindness part of that is that I run a wellbeing program called Time for Kindness, which is all about inspiring and teaching people to notice the kindness that exists in the world. Because when you see kind, you feel better. And when you feel better, you perform better in whatever that means in your context. And then the other part of my work is that I work with primarily not-for-profit organisations, but also small for-purpose businesses to help them to communicate effectively and connect with their audiences to get their messages across and to create outcomes that they are aiming for.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we've got lots of scope for talking about creativity within that. So in terms of, so what I normally ask is I define creativity in two parts. So I've kind of got creative expression and then creative thinking. So in terms of creative expression, where does that either come into your business, or if it doesn't come into your business specifically, in other stuff that you do?
Sure. So I guess in different ways, really. I am, a lot of my work is around writing, is around language. I have always loved language right from when I was, a young child. I used to like writing stories. I was bored in the holidays. Mum would set me a sort of a title, and it would be a day in the life of a 50p piece, or a day in the life of a crisp packet, or something like that. And in fact, funny enough, so I'm one of three girls, and we all write now. And I'm sure that kind of early training, for want of a better way of putting it, was helpful in that.
Yeah.
So I still write. I write for work. I have a journal that I keep for myself, which is a combination of writing and art, because I have in probably the last 10, 15 years, maybe, rediscovered my creativity in terms of creating art. And in fact, I've got something on the wall behind me here, which is, one of mine, or three of mine, actually. It's a set of three. But I was a classic, at school. I did art for a little while, but I was put off, by the way it was taught. And it was quite, I guess, kind of boundaried, for want of a better way of putting it. And then, over the years, and like I say, particularly the last 10, 15 years, I've done some kind of personal development stuff that has been around creating, drawing, painting, and just kind of letting go of that. It has to be, a set thing. And I was very lucky to have a teacher for a little while, a lady called Jane, whose whole approach is actually, it is about the process. It's about having fun. It's about that creating in its broadest possible sense. And I can't imagine being without it. I love painting. I love drawing. And I do bring that into my business a little bit as well, in ways. I have things on the wall in my office, which kind of inspire me. And it's kind of a drawing of something that I have done, or I might even as simple as, I'm taking notes from a meeting, I'll use different colour pens and I'll kind of underline things, and that sort of creativity that's on a really small scale, but genuinely makes me feel different, better. And better is not really the right word, but it really kind of it feeds my soul, I suppose. Yeah. It's kind of a way of putting it, really.
Yeah. Well, it just adds something, doesn't it? When you're particularly if you're doing things that involve a lot of thinking and processing, and actually with a kind of slightly more professional corporate sort of outlook, adding a bit of playfulness into it's nice.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, and the coloured pen thing, I've done that for a long, long time, actually, probably even before I rediscovered the actual kind of painting side of things. I work for myself now, and I have done, for kind of 14-ish years. But prior to that, even when I was in meetings, and in my in-house role, I would often be writing in different coloured pens, and my colleagues are often fascinated by, what are you doing? But actually, the words were still the same. It was no less professional because it was in different colours. And in fact, it writing in different colours and things is more inspiring to me. And then that sparks more ideas and different ways of doing things as well. So it becomes a bit of a sort of cycle, really.
Yeah. So you said so obviously that you've been doing that for sort of 10 or so years. What was it that kind of made you rediscover that and kind of get back into doing drawing and painting?
Yeah, I think it was sort of a combination of things. Probably it was probably a sort of age stage of life thing in some ways. I had a small child, and she's always liked drawing and so on. And I found out as a mum, I'm not really good at play in the sense of kind of using toys. But actually what I was good at was the kind of the drawing, the creating, and we have around the house, we have a couple of things which my daughter and I created together when she was really quite little, and we sort of did different bits. So I think it was sort of an element of that. And then also I did a personal development program that was around, and I'm just trying to think what the kind of starter for that was. I think the starting of that was so I did an NLP qualification, which neuro-linguistic programming, which I absolutely loved, and it really made sense to me in terms of getting to know myself and my preferences, and the way I kind of operated in the world better. And then this course, this personal development thing came up that was sort of developing that understanding of your own kind of brain and your own preferences and your own patterns of thinking. And that happened to use quite a lot of kind of creativity and creating pictures and art and that sort of thing as part of it. I hadn't necessarily gone out of my way to find an art-based one, as it were, but I think that really, it was a time of lots of different things coming together.
Yeah, so it all just sort of, I mean, I find little things, one thing leads to another, doesn't it? You sort of explore something and then something else happens, and then, I mean, in my case, I think I started doing the writing and realising that I wanted to do more photography and things like that. And actually the thing that having she's now 7, but having a young child gave me was actually I started doodling a bit more, because I started, we'd be talking about something and I'd sort of go, I wonder if I can draw a centipede and, or a spider. So I've got this little repertoire of, as well as my weird penguins.
The things that a 4-year-old wants mummy to draw for them.
Exactly. So that's sort of that I think it is interesting that you say that's sort of one of the things that brought that out, having a young child and finding things to do with them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's nice as well is that mine is 17 now, and she will kind of draw and doodle and create and kind of make cards for friends and that sort of thing. And I like the fact that I've also sort of role model, I guess, for her, that it's something that actually you can keep doing. It's not something that, you're sort of almost allowed to be creative as a child, and then it gets put aside as you become a grown up. Because actually that's nonsense. We're all creative. We can all be creative and bring it into our lives in some form, and it will be different for different people, but and she also did not do art as a GCSE or obviously she did it at school for a few years, but it was not a formal part of her education. But again, I think some of that came from seeing that I don't have that kind of formal education background in art, and yet it is a big part of who I am. And I mean, that is how I would describe it now. It is part of my identity. And sometimes if I'm feeling brave, I'll describe myself as an amateur artist. It's very much with the emphasis on amateur.
But I mean, that's nice that you can find the time for it and incorporate it somehow, alongside other things. So in terms of, I guess that sort of brings us on a little bit to the creative thinking side of things. I mean, that's a big thing, really. I think people don't always think of themselves as creative, even when it comes to thinking. What sort of, if I said creative thinking, what does that bring to your mind?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think that thing of, so in my communications work, one of the things that I do, I have done over the years is run communications, effective communication training workshops. And one of the things I talk about then is I say, actually, we are all communicators at one level or another, even if what all you think you're doing is kind of getting up and talking to your family or talking to the cat or, whatever. Actually, you're creating something there. You are communicating, you are creating something, you are putting words together. So I think that the creative thinking, for me, it is, I'm trying to find a way to describe it without using the word creating in the definition, really, kind of define it with itself. But I think, it certainly, for me personally, creative thinking, is a lot of ideas generation and just kind of words and half thoughts very often. And that's sort of how, you and I have worked together in the past, where I've come to you with all sorts of post-it notes.
Yeah, random collection of
bits of paper and said, help me, Nina. Exactly. Because I think for me that, I write things down to capture them almost. I kind of, whether I would forget it or not, I don't know, but I'm sort of a bit concerned I might do. So I will jot it down, but I will also, I'd very much, I use a laptop. I use my phone for notes. I do use digital methods, but there is something for me about the connection from my brain to my hand to a piece of paper that works really well, to sort of jot things down. So creative thinking for me is a lot about ideas generation. I've always got new ideas. So there comes a point where you have to go, right, okay, which of these are we going to follow?
Yes, which is what I love dealing with. It's the choice of ideas and the sort of, and actually, but making sure that those other ones don't get lost, because, they're all, in fact, this in itself, these conversations that I'm doing, this is an idea I had a couple of years ago. And it's only, so it's good to have an idea that you come back to when the time's right, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've started, I say I've started, I've done it once so far, but I intend to do it twice a year, almost kind of giving myself like an away day, which actually involved, in fact, the first time actually involved going to my local library, where they've got a really big table and a nice sort of quiet area where I could spread out all my bits of paper and kind of go through it and go, okay, is this still useful? Is this still relevant? Is this something, as you say, either that I might want to come back to in a couple of years, or actually is it something that I think I want to do now and I want to explore further? What I also found was that there were bits that I had jotted down where I'd still sort of kept that note in my pile of kind of ideas. Yeah. And when I looked at it, I thought, actually, I'm doing that already. So it doesn't need to be in my ideas now, because I have it, I'm making it happen, even though it wasn't as sort of, I don't know, joined up or direct to say, oh, here's the bit of paper, now I'll do it. It was in my head and I'd moved it forward anyway. So, as I say, I intend to do that kind of twice a year, to go through those bits and say, where are we at? And there will be things where I think, well, this still isn't something I want to action now, but I still think it's a good idea. So I'm going to keep it in my, maybe in the future pile. Yeah. So maybe I'll get some podcast conversations popping out of mine. You never know.
Who knows? Well, I know you've been doing, I keep seeing you pop up on other people's podcasts and things. So been doing a few of those.
That's my approach at the moment.
Well, it's good. It's nice to have conversations. That's something I've been working on this year and sort of started. This time last year, you'd never have caught me doing this. I've recording a conversation. Oh, no. But
it's interesting, isn't it? Because things have to be right for you at that point in time, don't they? And it's sort of, I think sometimes with the creative thinking and the kind of ideas, there's that risk that we start to think, oh, it's not a good idea, or there's some sort of fundamental issue. And actually, yes, sometimes there might be, but very often it's just that the timing isn't right, or, you know, the kind of context, or the person perhaps that you started to have the conversation with wasn't quite right for that, but in the future something else would pop up. So, you know, it's quite easy, I think, to get into that, or that sort of that critical, really, that kind of self-critical kind of mindset of assessing the value of an idea. But actually it's not necessarily quite that straightforward, because, as I say, the timing might be different, and the people involved might be different. So being open a bit more, I think, is useful.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things there, actually. One, I mean, you said about one of them's about having the right people around, isn't it? So actually you can have an idea, but if you haven't got the people who are going to help you do either the practical bit or just be the creative, in this case, the creative people that you want to talk to, and knowing what you want to talk about, it's not going to move anywhere anyway. But then the other you just said, I have to try and remember what you said. There something sparked something there. No, about not waiting until something's perfect, that actually you can just explore it without having an end point in mind. You can sort of say, you know what, I'm just trying these, thinking, well, I'll just try it, see what happens.
Yeah.
Because you never know, as you say, as we were talking about with all your creative courses, and when you were doing your art and NLP, you never know where it's going to go and what it's going to incorporate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, there is something in that as well about doing something just because it's fun, actually. And it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be you're doing this because of the end point. It's because actually it's fun to do. So that in itself, it, you know, is an end point in a way of itself. And it reminds me a little bit of using AI. So I'm still not sure what my view is on AI. I kind of, it varies quite a lot. But one of the things was people kept saying to me, oh, it's great. You know, it can write blogs for you. It can, and it's so fast. And I thought, yeah, but that's only great if we accept that faster is better, which I don't. But also, I enjoy writing blogs. So why would I give it to a machine to do it for me when it's something I enjoy? Yeah. But what I do use AI for, and I've started to use AI for, is to generate headlines. Because I have always, my entire career, been notoriously hopeless at headlines. It's a different skill to writing the content. And I'm just not so sort of on it. And I found that really helpful then to use AI to generate ideas and then think, oh, okay, so that's almost what I want. And maybe I'll tweak it, or maybe I'll do a bit of that or the other. So I think there is definitely something about, just our whole sort of mindsets around why we do anything. What is the purpose of anything that we do? And it will vary, of course, depending on the task. But yeah, for me, creating is a fun thing to do. So I'm not giving that to someone else, or a machine, because I enjoy it, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point about AI, because I think, for me, I actually like writing things, and for me, often writing a blog post is a thought process. It's sometimes I'll write things, whether it's a blog post or a social media post, and actually I'll get to a point where I think, do you know what, I'm not actually going to post this because I got what I wanted from writing it, because actually it was a thing where I had a thought and I thought, oh, where am I going to take that? And then it meanders along, and then you get to the end. And sometimes it's a thing that's worth sharing with other people in whatever format. And sometimes you actually go, do you know what? I don't think anyone else needs that. That it gave me what I needed.
Yes. Yeah. I can relate to that. All right. Actually, more often what I do is I start out thinking, right, I'm going to write a LinkedIn post, for example, and it gets longer and longer and longer as I put more and more of my thoughts in it. And then I think, oh, actually, this is a blog or an article now. This has gone beyond post. And again, there's nothing wrong with that either.
But yeah, so I mean, I agree. I think AI, I think it has its place, and I often ask for ideas and sort of, or different ways of looking at something, or but in terms of, but I can see why, if people don't actually enjoy the writing, actually it can easily generate a whole load of content that you can then do something with. Although
Yeah.
That said, I was doing something the other day, and it just, the language of it is just not, you kind of have to sift through it, don't you? And sort of, I guess it depends on what purpose you're using it for in the end.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just another tool, isn't it? It's just it's the current latest shiny tool, and there is always a new shiny tool. So it's about how you apply it. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, for different people, you know, it will have different uses because, if you don't enjoy writing, then it would be a real slog to have to kind of churn out however many words and what have you. So why not use AI to help you with that? But I think you're right. I think you have to be very careful with not just taking what you got from AI and putting it out completely because, it can be inaccurate for staff, but also that tone thing might not be quite right, or, you know, it's at the moment, I think it's still not always by any means, but there still are regular times where I see things and I think, that's AI written because I can just tell from the tone or the wording. But not everybody can. Again, if language is not your skill, then you might not, you know, be able to notice that. And I'm sure there are lots of times when it's AI generated when I don't notice it. But, you know, it's an evolving thing as well.
It's interesting to see where that goes. So we talked a bit about ideas, haven't we? And I'm just thinking what else for me comes under creative thinking. I suppose for me, creative thinking, it's the having it's sort of as a process. So it's sort of, you know, have the ideas, choose an idea, shape an idea, talk about an idea, and actually sort of see it all through. And is there anything, if I talk about the process like that, is there anything there that sort of stands out for you as, you know, actually you don't like that bit and you'd rather someone else did it for you?
Yeah. I think what I find sometimes is that there are ideas that I have that I think, oh, that's a really good idea, but it's not something that I want to deliver myself. And so there are times where I enjoy that process of the kind of ideas generation, and I might enjoy a bit of the exploration of it. But I also I'm quite I suppose I'm instinctive about things in the sense of I don't want to get too bogged down into too much kind of detailed research, because then I sort of lose the joy I get from a bit more of a kind of spontaneity. And again, I know that's something you've helped me with, where I've got to a certain point, there's no need, can you research this and then present me with some ideas and I'll choose from that. Because I'll go to a certain sort of level and then I sort of start to think, oh, this is boring me now.
Yeah. And
so I need to make a decision on something.
Yeah. And
so I guess it's that bit me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes, like, you know, sometimes we've worked together, you know, it might be that then it comes back to me to make a decision and move it forward. Or it might be that I'm like, actually, you know, I still think this is a really good idea and I will support someone else to do it, but it's not for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just comes back to that point of having different people's brains at different stages of an idea, different stages of a project, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's what we need, isn't it? We need that kind of variety. It's no good if we're all the same, actually. We need those kind of that variety, different skills, the different interests, the different, you know, it's a collaborative thing. Because I think that's the thing for me, you know, collaboration is really important. And that will be at different stages, depending on, you know, different kind of ideas or different things that I'm doing. But, you know, I'm definitely, I mean, I always say that my favorite word is together, because it very much that kind of bringing together and working together with other people is really important to me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought as well. So, right, well, I mean, I feel like we've sort of reached an end point on talking about creativity and creative thinking. Actually, do you have anything you want to add to that particular part?
No, I think I think for me that I love the fact that I have rediscovered much more creativity than I perhaps I was going to say that I thought I had, but I don't know that it's that. I think, in the earlier parts of my career, this idea of kind of professionalism, without me consciously doing that, I think it kind of did squash out some of that kind of creativity. And actually, I really like the fact that I've kind of come back to, actually, no, I can be creative. I am running a successful business and I'm doing it with coloured pens. I am doing it with these kinds of paintings on my wall. And actually, but I am still a valuable professional, as it were. Yeah. And I think it's lovely if we can get to a place where more people feel that and don't feel that actually, particularly in a work context, you have to fit in that box and it all has to be exactly the same because, that piece about we all do different things and we bring different things to the party, and actually we lose some of that if we squash us all into the same shape box.
Yes. No, absolutely. Something valuable to summarize it all. a bit of a thought to take away.
Indeed.
So before we finish then, would you like to just share your website details or somewhere that people can find you if they want to go and see what you're like?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Yes. So, I guess the place to find me with all the stuff I do, is on LinkedIn. So I'm Sarah Browning, she, her on LinkedIn, and you can find there information about my communications work and my kindness work. And particularly if you're interested in the Time for Kindness Wellbeing program, then go take a look at the website, which is timeforkindness.co.uk. And we're across social media as well. But if you go to the website, and then it will link you to different places.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Sarah. And I will talk to you soon, and hopefully other people will come and have a read about what you're up to.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed the conversation.